Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, once again, and welcome to the 18th edition of the Ocean Leadership Series, where we'll be looking at the impacts of flood protection structures on fish migration. So we already have our guest speaker on the call already. So Mr. Sherif Babalola. But before I introduce him, or before I introduced him and he comes up board. So let me just give a kind of insight into what we do in Aquaworld, just in case we have someone that just joined the call and doesn't really know what Aquaworld is all about. So Aquaworld is a community development initiative, and we have our mission is to empower vulnerable groups and marginalized communities, like our coastal communities in Nigeria. And we are expanding beyond Nigeria now through creative and pragmatic initiatives that is aimed at marine protection, climate resilience, and environment enhancement. And we have the vision for a thriving coastal communities in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, where marine ecosystems are protected and environmental aesthetics are improved and residents are empowered to lead sustainable livelihood. So this is our founder, Paul Ewiola Ayomide, and is currently on the call also. So maybe after the meeting today, if you wish to join Aquaworld, you can as well just reach out to me on the chat, and then we will tell you the steps you have to take to become a member of Aquaworld. So I just need you to do something for me. So I just wanted to put it on the chat where you are joining us from. Just tell us, maybe you're joining us from Nigeria, you're joining us from South Africa, you're joining us from Belgium, from Italy. Just put it on the chat. Let us know where you are joining us from. Just quickly, put it on the chat. Let's know. Yes. Okay. Checking. Nice. Oh, you're Nigeria. Good. From Nigeria, 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 from Spain. Nice. Belgium. Belgium. We have two Belgium people here. I'm joining from Belgium also, just for record purpose. Oh, nice. Germany. Interesting. Netherlands. Nice. Oh, that's nice. Okay, not to waste our time, we have our speaker already, and then I will just introduce our speaker, and then he will come on board. Please do well to mute your microphones. After the session, there will be an avenue for you to ask any question you may have. So, which you can put on the chat even as the lecture is going on, or maybe you may want to raise up your hand and I will beckon on you to unmute your mic and answer and ask your question, pardon me. So and then now to our speaker. Okay. So Mr. Sherif Babalola is an environment scientist with a strong academic background in environmental science and water management. He completed his joint master's degree in 2023 in water science and engineering with specialization in flood risk management at the Dresden University of Technology in Germany and at IHE Delft Institute of Water Education in the Netherlands. His expertise spans across several areas, including flood risk assessment and management, data analysis, and environmental water management, which he honed through rigorous research and international experience. Beyond academia, Mr. Sherifdeen has cultivated a diverse professional portfolio, which includes excelling in team leadership, administration, project management, customer engagement, and services and content development. He has a passion for sustainability, and with this passion, innovation, and leadership, he has played key roles in science communication, event coordination, logistics, and stakeholder engagement. Mr. Sherifdeen's ability to adapt quickly, coupled with strong problem-solving negotiation and organizational skills, makes him a valuable asset in any dynamic environment he finds himself. Driven by commitment to climate action, knowledge sharing, and operational efficiency, Mr. Sherifdeen continues to seek opportunities that bridge technology, sustainability, and strategic management to ensure impactful contributions to both industry and society. So, with a loud ovation, welcome with me, Mr. Sherifdeen Olamilekan Babalola, as he takes the microphone. Welcome, Mr. Sherifdeen.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good wherever everybody's joining. That was quite interesting introduction, Paul. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Um, Today we would be talking about the impact of flood risk management structures on fish migration. Um, Before I start, I would probably like to share my screen for my presentation, and then we can kickstart. Okay, I don't know if everyone can see. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good. Yeah, good afternoon once again. So the discussion for today is the impact of flood protection structures on fish migration, an overview of flood protection and its effects on our ecosystem globally, but particularly today's topic would be focusing on fish migration generally. Um, I would say flooding is actually becoming now a very big topic in the world, not just in Nigeria, as majority of the people joining us today are from there. I mean, we are really glad to have members or people joining from different aspects of the world. I do believe that flooding is actually becoming a big issue globally now. Even recently, in countries that don't even exist or experience flooding, talking about the United Arab Emirates, in Dubai last year, they had significant number of, flood situations in which they were not, infrastructurally prepared for. And it was a new situation for them. And of course, a lot of people lost properties, a lot of people, so many infrastructural damages happened in Dubai. This is to tell us how unforeseen the situation of flooding has now become globally. And of course, a lot of people, a lot of countries, a lot of governments are trying to, make, plan ahead, look for alternatives to, prevent this loss of, not just loss of infrastructure, loss of human life as well. A lot of countries are trying to, implement so many protection measures to be able to, tackle this natural disaster. And of course, somehow these solutions or these measures has actually really has different effects on the aquatic life form, talking about fishes, for example. And here I would like to, a little bit talk about the introduction to flood protection. So, from Sherifdeen's MacBook Pro. Sorry, I think. Oh, okay, good. So, why do we actually really need flood protection? Like I said earlier, a lot of countries out there are putting in flood protection measures in order to prevent, flooding, of course, to protect infrastructure as well, and to ensure human safety. The reason we really need to, introduce different flood protection measures is to actually really, make sure people don't lose their life, they don't lose their property, they don't lose their business, they don't lose their source of livelihood, basically. And from there, what are the different, common structures that we have generally? So when we talk about flood protection structures, the most, popular ones we have are dams, floodgates, flood walls. Looking at the picture on my far left here on top, that's like a flood wall that is being built in the UK, just like a temporary structure that is being built to prevent, water from overflowing to the other side. And of course, the one in the middle here shows different, that's a dam. And the one on my right top corner is actually the floodgate that is currently in the Thames River in London. And of course, the one in red is a barrier that is being built to temporarily stop water from overflowing to a certain area. So these are the different common flood protection structures that we have. And of course, why do we need to build these things, or why do we need to create flood protection structures to safeguard communities, to ensure that people don't lose their business, for economic stability, and so on? Now, talking about understanding fish migration, the same, I like to use this type of example. I like to bring humans and compare a little bit in terms of migration with fishes, basically. I know a lot of us know the common Jaguar syndrome. Everybody wants to, leave a particular place for one reason or another. I mean, it could come for different reasons. Some people want to leave for, for greener pasture. Some people are leaving because maybe they are currently not, getting what they want in terms of academic prospect, in terms of professional development in the current position where they want to move. So many reasons why people can actually really move. The same way we have this among people is the same way we have this among fishes. And talking about migration of fishes, fishes can migrate depending on their needs. And when we talk about migration because of needs, one could be probably for feeding. Maybe they need to move from a certain location to another to be able to feed. Some of them could move for spawning. Some fishes need to lay eggs. Some fishes need to go to certain, be in a particular environment to be able to, procreate, to be able to, lay eggs, to be able to, create young ones. Some fishes actually also, it could be climatic condition or a seasonal migration. In the summer, for example, they are found in certain part of the ocean. In the winter, they have to move to be able to survive. And of course, osmoregulation migration as well is there. Also, in terms of osmotic regulation of the fishes, of their the whole system, they need to move. And of course, juvenile migration, this simply means fishes that probably move from their place of of coming out of their eggs, for example. They tend to stay in a particular location until they get to a certain age, and then they have to move to be able to attain that adulthood, basically. And this is basically on the basis of their needs. Also, we have on the basis of environment. And when we talk about environment, we have different types of fish migration. It could be diadromous. Diadromous could either be anadromous or catadromous. And as seen on the slide, anadromous are the ones that move from fresh water to the seawater, and of course catadromous move from the seawater, freshwater. We can also have oceanodromous, those that move just within the ocean itself and not going to another water body, basically. Somehow we also have latitudinal, the ones that move from the North Pole to the South Pole. And also we have vertical, fishes that move from the deep part of the water body or the ocean or to the surface. Some of them also we have shoreward, those that move from from the water to the shore, that is to the land. And somehow they also can survive and move back into water. I mean, these are the different reasons why fishes migrate. And what are the ecological significances of fish migration? Why do you think, or what are the most important things? Why do you think fishes migrate? And what ecological significance does it portray? So fish migration is actually very essential for species survival. I mean, a lot of fishes would not continue to exist if they don't migrate. If they don't find that comfort zone where they can procreate, where they can spawn, they won't survive. Also for genetic diversity, quite important in terms of, continuous existence of fishes, to have different genetic diversity among the different fishes that we have in the ocean. It is definitely important for them to migrate. And of course, one final thing is the ecosystem health. The general ecosystem health, also is significantly boosted with fish migration. Now, what are the challenges that we have in terms of that affects fish migration in general? So, like I said earlier, the different structures that that is being used in terms of flood protection could could come as an impediment or impeding of migration routes. Dams, for example, could block routes for fishes to move around. This automatically leads to the decline of certain fish population or the extinction of certain fish population if they can't move to situations where they can definitely spawn, and so on and so forth. These are different challenges that flood protection structures can have on migration of fishes generally. And the next subheading here we have is the problem statement, the impact of structures on migration. Now, we talk about barriers. We have actually here, I'm going to talk about the different structures that we have in the next slide. But yeah, I'll just talk like briefly on what really happens when we build, different structures and how it really affects the different fish migration. So barriers, for example, the structures they block or alter migration paths, which is the main problem. That is like the problem statement of today's discussion. The ecological consequence of this is, of course, decline in fish population, the disruption of food chain. Food chain is quite very important in the aquatic environment, not just aquatic, also in the terrestrial environment, but generally food chain is quite important. And of course, when there is a disruption in the food chain, there is definitely loss of biodiversity. The economic impact of this uh, definitely is a reduced commercial and recreational fish stocks. Of course, when there's a decline in fish population, it automatically means there's less fish in the water for farmers to, for fishermen to, to be able to catch. Of course, we have so many ornamental fishes in the ocean or in the river that we actually really, can take advantage of and, increase our chances of getting ornamental fisheries. However, when there's a reduction in population, automatically this also reduce the different fish stock that are available for recreational purposes as well. And now we talk about overview of flood protection structures. Then here I would like to talk about the different flood protection structures more in details. The first one here I will talk about is levees. So levees are either earthen or concrete walls that are built to be able to, prevent overflow of water from one side to another. On my top right-hand side, you would see an example of a levee. So it's just like this one is more like a concrete constructed. You will see on the left side, you have the water path that is needed to be prevented to come to the land side. And then the levee is being built in such a way that the water is being trapped on one side of the area, and then the land is being protected as a result of the building of this levee. So that's an example of a flood protection structure. Dams, the top left picture here shows an example of a dam. Dams can be built for so many reasons: for hydroelectricity, for flood protection, for flood water storage. Actually, globally, a lot of farmers depend on dam water for agriculture. A lot of people, a lot of governments have used dams also to generate electricity, and this is typical example of a flood protection structure. Flood walls are concrete barriers that can be used, to prevent flooding. Not just concrete. Recently there are different flood walls that have been built that are not concrete anymore. Some of them are metal as well. Some people are now using carbon fiber. So many structures are now being used to build flood walls globally, and it doesn't necessarily have to be concrete anymore. But yeah, a lot of effort is being made to make flood walls movable. So because when it comes to concrete, then it's not movable, and then it makes it like a permanent structure. So a lot of people are now trying to go into using a much more flexible flood wall barriers, basically. And then the last one on the list here is a storm surge barrier. For people in the Netherlands, they will probably be familiar with this one. That's the bottom left picture. If you've been to the Netherlands quite a while and you've been to this area, you would have come across this storm surge barrier. So this barrier is actually built in the Netherlands to protect sea surges. So if you see on the top side of that barrier, that is the river that flows directly into the country, and then the one on the bottom is the outlet that goes into the ocean. So of course, there are so many situations where there is storm surge in the sea, and then there's overflow of water that is coming directly from the sea that is trying to flow back into the country. And of course, Netherlands being a flat land, water flow is quite easy to go both ways, whether going forward or coming backwards, especially when there's a storm surge. But then with this barrier, somehow the country itself is being protected from some surges, as the water that is coming back from the sea doesn't flow back into the country itself through the river. And these are different types of flood structure that we have generally. Here we have a case study of different impacts of flood protection structures on fish populations generally. So I selected 3 different case studies that I was able to pick on from research, and I want to briefly talk about them. So one case study is dams and salmon migration in the Pacific Northwest. So a study that was done showed or that a study that was done back then examines how the construction of a dam in the Pacific Northwest has significantly hindered the natural migration patterns of salmon. And it was found out that this dam creates a barrier that prevents salmon from reaching their spawn grounds, leading to the decreased fish population and affecting the entire aquatic ecosystem. Imagine, you, for example, as an human, wanting to jackpot, and then, I think a lot of us have this, I have this already, have this, notion that, yeah, okay, there are certain countries that you definitely don't want to try to jackpot to because of the government restriction, because of the non-friendly immigration rules and this and that. So it's similar to a fish case where, they have plans to, migrate to a better place, but then because we have constructed dams along the way, it stops them from migrating and then it decreases their fish population. So this case study here shows how the dam construction affected salmon migration. Case study 2 is levee's effect on Mississippi River species. This case study analyzed the effects of a levee that was built along the Mississippi River on various fish species. And this levee altered the natural flow of the river. That's one, which then automatically disrupts the habitat and breeding grounds for fish. So this is a different, way generally that, a flood protection structure has not or has affected the fish migration. It has not affected it directly, but it has altered the natural flow of a river. And of course, when there's no natural flow of a river, some fishes are definitely stuck in a particular point where they cannot get to their breeding grounds. And as a result of this, certain fish population have declined as well, which has impacted the biodiversity in that particular river. And the last case study here is the storm surge that I talked about recently in my previous slide, the storm surge barrier in the Netherlands. So the implementation of this storm surge barrier in the Netherlands is explored in relation to estuarine fish species. I think for those that are not really familiar with estuarine, what estuarine fish population means. So estuarine is an area of a water body that is between a fresh water and a salt water. So for example, in the area where this particular surge barrier, is being built is an estuarine area. And this is like an area where there is a sudden, change from being fresh water to sea water. But then the fish population in this particular area, as a result of the building of this barrier, was significantly affected. Of course, these barriers protect coastal areas from flooding, as that was the major reason for making or creating this barrier. They also change the salinity and flow of water in that particular area, which can then be detrimental to the local fish species that rely specifically on that environmental condition. Some fish species rely on a stable saline flow of water or salinity level of water to be able to, spawn, to be able to, procreate. But of course, this construction of such barrier automatically makes a sudden change in the salinity level and the flow of water. Imagine opening the barrier for a while, making fresh water flow, and then closing the barrier, stopping fresh water from flowing. And this automatically alter the difference, salinity level and the flow of water, which automatically affects the fish species generally. Methods to assess the different impacts. So yeah, we are talking about how the impacts, how the flood protection structures impact fish migration. In what way can we actually really tell? How can we measure how much this impact is really making on fish migration? And here I talked about some certain innovative techniques to monitor aquatic ecosystems that we can really use to tell or to check the damage that is being done to fish species. One way we can actually really tell the impact is by tagging fishes. So we have fish tagging and tracking. So we have different types of electronic tags that can be used. So what we do here is, of course, we capture the fish, we put a tag, and then, by doing this, we are able to track that fish and really tell how much it is being impacted by the different structures that have been built in the area where the fish, exist. Another innovative technique that is being used currently is hydroacoustic survey. Here, scientists use sound waves to detect and track fish. So of course, when fish move from one place to another, they use these hydroacoustic surveys to be able to track where the fishes move to within the water body, basically. And this actually has been used globally by different scientists. Another thing is genetic analysis. A lot of scientists are now using or assessing genetic diversity of fish population and general population health with DNA samples. So recent scientists or recent researchers have been using DNA samples of fishes to actually really tell how much flood protection structures are being affected or is being impacting them. Another thing is environmental DNA, or what the scientists call eDNA. This is a rapid and accurate detection of fish species presence through just by taking samples of water. So, for example, scientists now take samples of water body, and the DNAs that are found in that water sample are now generally being used to track the impact of flood protection measures on the migration of that particular fish species. And the next point here is the innovative solutions for compatibility. We definitely need compatibility in terms of course, the idea of building flood protection structures is to be able to, protect the social, the economic aspect of, a particular city or a particular country or a particular environment, basically. And of course, to protect humans, it is quite important. We know that, yes, this flood, with the recent uncertainty in terms of flooding and with the impact of climate change globally, we know that we definitely need to, protect ourselves from the impact of flooding. So we definitely need to, start to implement these flood protection structures. However, it is also very important to have an healthy ecosystem or to ensure that there's biodiversity within the ecosystem, especially talking about fishes. So we need to find a balance. So we have so many innovative solutions that are compatible to be able to of course, while we have our flood protection structures, we can also ensure that fish continue to migrate. And here, the first structure here is a fish passage structure. So these are structures that are designed to mimic, the natural water flow. And we can have different ones talking about ladders, bypass channels, elevators, and looking at the top left picture here, we can see, for example, a levee that is being built across a river over there. But then on the side with the green area, we can see a fish passage there, for example, in form of a natural vegetation. Here they have implemented or put some grasses in that area and some rocks in order to make sure to mimic a form of a natural water flow without having that levee being constructed. The way the water should actually really flow, they try to mimic it over there. And this is one way that we can actually also ensure that fish continue to migrate by building fish passage structures, basically. The one below it as well is an example of a ladder that is being built across a dam to ensure this is just like a pathway for fishes to be able to swim and find their way to migrate over that dam and to ensure that they don't get stuck below the dam. That's one of the different ways in which we can have compatibility between fish migration and protective structures. Another thing is adaptive management. Here, monitoring and adjusting structures based on real-time data and environmental changes is very, very important. So, for example, you've built a dam and you've built fish passage. It is also very important that you also monitor these fish passage areas as well. And the changes in the environmental conditions in that fish passage area is also very important because sometimes, for example, the fish ladders, for example, or the structures could be clogged. And then the fishes don't get to use those type of structures anymore because, of course, it has been blocked or clogged by so many other things. So consistent monitoring is also very important to ensure that, yeah, fish continue to, migrate. Another solution is building eco-friendly designs or creating eco-friendly designs. So here, natural elements such as natural substrates, vegetation, can be put in addition to the different fish passage structures that we have in order to support their migration. A fish would definitely be happy to swim around a fish passage area when they feel like, oh, it's in a normal natural area that they didn't know that, yeah, it's man-made or it is artificial or being built to mimic that general natural environment, basically. And then we also the last one here is the community involvement. Here, engaging locals in planning and maintenance of fish passage initiatives could ensure long-term environmental conservation. So, for example, maybe there's a locality where we know that, yeah, they are prone to flooding and we need to build flood protection structures. It is quite important to engage with their locals there and give them update about our plans and the need for them to actually really maintain whatever fish passage initiative that is being built in that area in order for them to have in order to ensure that there is a long-term environmental conservation in that particular area. So it is quite important to go through these different solutions to create that compatibility and balance between flood protection and fish migration. So here I have a step-by-step guide to implement solutions. So yeah, we talked about the solutions in the previous slide. So how do you actually implement this solution? You don't just think about, okay, this is what I think we should need to do. How can I do it should be the next thing in line, basically. So the first thing to do is an assessment. So when we want to build a dam, for example, in a particular area, we need to conduct environmental impact studies to know the current situation, the state and conditions of that particular area or that particular water body. So this gives us an insight into, for example, the number of fishes that can be found in that area, the fishes that depend on migration to be able to survive in that area. It gives so many information that can give us a better way to design a fish passage structure in support with the flood protection measure. So assessment is actually very important. That is like the first thing you need to do. Conduct environmental impact studies to be able to know the current state and the current conditions. So once we have this, then we go to the design. So here we have to collaborate with engineers and ecologists to design a fish-friendly structure. So here it's quite important, of course, to design fish structures that are very, very fish-friendly, basically. And of course, it is important to collaborate with engineers that know what they are doing, that are experts in in the field, and of course, ecology. The engineers come in contrast with in situation with the flood protection structure part, and of course, the fish migration protection part comes with the ecology. So there is a need to actually bring these two people together to be able to build a compatible structure that is both flood protective and also fish passage friendly. After the design is the implementation. So as we build the flood protection structure, we also install a fish passage structure after it has been designed. And of course, monitoring. After the design, we should also implement ways to track fish movement and monitor fish population within that structure to be sure that, okay, the fish passage that we have actually built is actually working. So it is important to also monitor. And like I said earlier, maintenance is also very important. Ensure that the fish passage continue to exist and continue to work. Adaptation. Adaptation is adjusting and managing based on data. Of course, when we monitor, we get to be able to monitor the whole fish movement. We need to get data. We take data. Like I said earlier, we can do fish tagging. We can do, to be able to monitor the population. And of course, from the data we get, we can always adjust and manage our different structures, whether it's the flood protection structure or the fish passage structure, based on the data that we have. The benefits of fish-friendly structures. Yeah, here I would like to stress more on this, on the need for sustainability. Sustainability here talks about having an environmentally, friendly or environmentally appropriate structure, an economically viable structure as well, because you don't want to, spend so much on building a flood protection structure and that's compatible with a fish friendly structure that's gonna cost so much to be able to maintain or to be able to build. Also, when it comes to society, we also want to have a socially enviable and socially possible structure that everybody can actually really use. It can create so many recreational aspects. It can bring so many recreational aspects to our environment as well. And so bringing all these three together, these are the different benefits of fish friendly structures. Talking about the ecological aspect, obviously, once we have like a compatible fish movement structure and a flood protection structure, it could improve fish population generally. Fishes can now move around, produce, spawn, and then continue to exist. Also, it leads to enhanced biodiversity and a healthy ecosystem, as long as both structures are working compatibly. The ecological aspect of fish-friendly structures continue to exist. Talking about the economic aspect, sustainable fisheries is definitely ascertained due to the long-term viability of fish stocks. As long as, both structures are working, there is the possibility that fish population would increase, which also increases fish stocks, and then long-term viability is ascertained. Also, this also increases recreational opportunities and boosts economy and tourism. Of course, fishermen also definitely have more fishes to catch to be able to now, sustain themselves. Companies have more fishes to catch to be able to like sustain their business. Global economy, like the environmental economy is also ascertained, and of course, there is also room for tourism when there's increase in recreational fishes that are available in the water. And talking about the social part, This foster community engagement by involving locals. Like I mentioned earlier, it is very important before you design a fish passage structure. It is quite important to engage the locals and inform them about your plans, because it is definitely going to be beneficial to them because it is their community, it is their locality. So it fosters community engagement by involving locals. It also promotes environmental stewardship and awareness. I mean, in Aquaworld, a lot of us are stewards in Aquaworld currently, and we are making impacts globally in different forms of area that we find ourselves. So this is also very important, and also one of the benefits of fish-friendly structures that we have. So conclusion and future directions. So, I mean, flood structures are needed, most definitely. We all know why. I think from the beginning, I stressed on the reason why we need flood protection structures. However, they must be fish friendly. We have to consider that some fishes need to migrate to be able to survive, to be able to exist, or else they decline in their population. Also, they could face the possibility of extinction. So there's a need to strike a balance between flood protection structures that are definitely fish friendly and fish migration friendly. Future research. So research, innovation, collaboration, these have continued to exist from the past, and it will continue to exist. A lot of people continue to, look into so many easier ways or so many fish-friendly structures out there to be able to, ensure that there's compatibility between flood protection and fish migration. And of course, finally, call to action. We definitely need to prioritize fish-friendly designs in our project. If we receive so many governments, of course, recently are now putting so many efforts or so much effort into building fish-friendly, flood protection structures. We've been wary of our impact on the environment, and it is definitely a priority right now. Every flood protection, structure that we are going to, continue to build globally needs to also consider the fact that there is an ecosystem that depends on that water body that you are building a structure on. There is an ecosystem that depends on it to be able to exist. So therefore, we need to prioritize fish-friendly designs in our different projects and in our different constructions. Thank you for your time. Definitely, I will be looking forward to your questions. And yeah, that's it from me today.
Wow, 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 wow. Can we give our speaker a round of applause? Can we do that? Can we do that? You can just I can see some people clapping. Mustafa was you. I haven't seen your clap. Abibat, Toby, Abibola. Yeah. So that was a wonderful delivery. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Sherifdeen, for that insightful lecture. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you. So do we have anyone with any question? Do we have anyone that maybe has a question? Let's know. You can raise up your hand. Okay. We have one person already. Uh, Oluwakemi, can you unmute yourself and ask the question,
Sure.
please?
Hi, Sherif. Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed your talk. And actually, my work is sort of related to what you were doing, but from the nature-based coastal infrastructure perspective. So here, there's a lot of, research going on trying to put the negative impacts of some of this flood protection initiatives out there. But there's one thing I have noticed, and because my research kind of involves stakeholders, and a common complaint I've seen is choosing immediate benefits over delayed benefits. So, for example, when you use those hard structures that you've mentioned, like the levees and the walls, you know, people feel like at the meantime, they reduce flood impacts, but they don't think of the long-term negative, impact of these things. But then when you look at structures like nature-based designs, if you're restoring mangroves, you have to give it time to grow. And it takes a number of years before you start seeing the impact of that structure. But then they have more positive benefit as compared to the art structures. So from your experience, what do you think is a good way to get the public involved in, choosing delayed benefits over immediate benefits when it comes to flood impact reduction?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting question. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, it's quite fascinating sometimes when, as for example, as a flood manager, we tend to always have this conflict of interest when it comes to involving certain community leadership or locals and giving out, different project plans that we have. Talking about, for example, we as flood risk managers believe the long-term, prospects of protection while considering ecosystem. Biodiversity is the most important part. And of course, this is what we as flood risk managers put into place when we want to probably design a flood protection structure. And of course, like I said earlier, it is quite important that we involve a lot of stakeholders, locals, communities, let them know this is what we want to, work on. And this, it's always a struggle when, of course, we always have to, we always have to provide the short-term alternatives and the long-term alternatives. Of course, talking about the strengths and weaknesses of both alternatives, yeah. And like you said, rightfully said, the people would probably prefer that short-term, fast response to the impending problem rather than wait for the long term to be implemented, and then that would probably be more beneficial. One thing or one way that, for example, that I think that I read somewhere that has been used in terms of convincing that the long-term solutions are better, that of course considers both flood protection, biodiversity protection, ecosystem protection, and this. One way that has worked is practically of course not like you have to like implement things for them to see, but then with the way technology is going now, it's now very important it's now very possible for you to simulate situations currently that can show real-time situations where people can actually, okay, for example, if we go with this alternative, this is a simulation that would show you what will happen in 2 years, what will happen in 3 years, what will happen in 5 years. This is the end result. There's now scientists are now using, or researchers are now using so many simulated, solutions to reflect or to buttress their points or their reasons why, or to defend their reasons why they feel, okay, a particular solution is better than a particular solution. And this somehow, according to recent researches, has been working in terms of implementing certain flood protection measures. These simulations are now being used to convince, like significantly convince people, and of course the locals in general, that okay, a particular solution that would probably take a while to implement but then would be more beneficial for a long term is better than you going for the short term solution that would probably, after like 4 or 5 years, it's like we are back to square one. So I think this is one way that has been working recently in terms of simulating situations that would happen, simulating results, simulating conditions, and showing people this is what happens if we choose this alternative. This is what happens if we choose that alternative. And I think somehow that is one way that we can use as researchers or as scientists or as managers in our different field to be able to like ensure that, okay, projects that are long lasting, ecologically friendly, ecosystem friendly are the ones that are being implemented rather than short-term ones, basically.
All right, thank you so much for your response. I think making projections and simulation is definitely a good way to put the impacts out there. And with just like with climate change, where we have the RCP 2.5 and 8.5, and people can see the difference and the relevance of reducing climate change. But thank you very much. I would also put that in mind and work on how I can include projecting the benefits of both structures in my work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kemi.
Thank you. I think we have another question. Maybe I should just let me call on Suibat first before I read the question from the chat. Suibat, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. My question is regarding the fish passage. Like, I'm just wondering how it's going to work in attracting different fish species, like with different characteristics. When we have slow swimming fish, fast swimming fish, and they are building the same passage for them, how is going to attract them to the passage? I don't know if you get the question. Thank you.
Yes, I definitely understand your question. So yeah, that's quite an interesting question. So basically, if we talk about, for example, when we talk about flood protection structures, a lot of flood protection structures are definitely built on either maybe on a lake or on the river. Most of the time, you hardly see a flood protection structure being built on the ocean or in the sea. Who are they trying to protect, basically? Yeah. But then the thing is, when it comes to fish movements, it's also very, when we talk about, building these fish passages, these are also things that we also need to consider in terms of, and that is why I said earlier when I was talking about the step-by-step implementation of the design that we want to pick, the first thing you need to do is to make an analysis of that environment. When you do this, you have information of the different fish species that are in that particular area. You have information about the fishes that migrate within that area. And with this knowledge, the fact that you already have an idea of, okay, maybe there are 10 fish species. In this area, there are 10 fish species. Okay, fine. You already have the knowledge, the data about their characteristics. You can make research about, okay, which ones are slow swimming, which ones are fast swimming, which ones require this, which one requires that. This altogether helps you design a structure that would be beneficial for every species that is found in that area. So that's why I said earlier, it is important that you conduct an analysis at the beginning. You have to know, okay, these are the type of fishes that are in this area. These are their characteristics. And then automatically that gives you the type of, gives you an idea of the type of fish structure that you need to build. Because of course, like you said earlier, if you are building a fish structure that is endemic to maybe fast swimmers, then what happens to the slow swimmers? So there definitely, a lot of research is out there, a lot of structures, a lot of, fish-friendly structures are out there that can be built that, exist, that can be beneficial to so many fish species, yeah? No matter the differences in their characteristics. And I don't know if you saw in my picture earlier, in my slide earlier, there were different structure that I showed in my slide. There was one that looks like a, diagonal structure that was specifically built in that way as a result of the fact that they did an assessment of that area, and they know that the fishes in that area would be able to migrate comfortably in that way. There are some that are just, step ladders. There are some fish structure that are just ladders. In fact, some are just like a tunnel. There are so many designs out there, but then these designs are being done after a thorough analysis of the different species in that particular water body. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sherifdeen, for emphasizing the need for environment impact assessment for us to conduct that before we actually build any flood protection structure. Yeah, thank you. The last question that I can see from here, I don't know if any other person have any other question. So please, if you have a question, just raise up your hand or put it on the chat. So this question is from Judith. Do dikes also impact fish migration negatively? So that's the question from Judith. So
Okay.
over to you.
Thank you so much, Judith. So I think it depends on the type of dike. So because when we talk about dike, so dikes can come in different forms. And of course, it depends on the construction material. So sometimes, for example, it depends on the water body. It depends on actually the main reasons why you are building that dike. And because there are some dikes that are built maybe for a reservoir to serve as water storage. Some are built for, of course, for flood protection structure. Some are even built. There are so many reasons why you can build a dike. So if you are building a dike, maybe for example, around the water body, for example, it could It could, depending on the type of water body, depending on the ecosystem or the biodiversity in that particular area or in that water body. The dye construction, depending on the type of material, whether it's concrete, whether it's earthen, could definitely impact fish migration, most definitely. But of course, you have to consider a lot of things in terms of the water body itself, the construction material, or what type of dike it is, what is the dike actually really built for, and so many things.
Thank you. Destiny? Yeah, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sherif. That wonderful presentation. I love this slide. It's quite interactive. So from your presentation, and also from the measures you gave to be able to reduce this effect of flood protecting structures, because as you have mentioned, as we have seen, the adverse effects of climate change, and also trying to strike a balance between conserving fishes and also meeting the human needs. So I was thinking, are there other measures that could be implemented? Because I've heard somewhere about maybe a kind of biodiversity restoration or habitat restoration. So whereby maybe you import certain kind of fish, maybe because of course, because of our barriers like our weirs and sluice, and they prevent certain fish from migrating, as you have said. So where you import other fishes to a certain location where you feel like they're lacking or something like that. I feel that could be another measure to reduce the use of some of these. That could be another measure of preserving the fishes, I would say. But I was thinking, of course, there must be some negative sides and positive side of this. So have you thought about this? Have you thought about, do you think there's some negative aspects of introducing a foreign species of fish as a result of managing or conserving this fish, this diversity?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Destin. I think that's actually a really important thing you mentioned in terms of introducing fish species to boost the biodiversity in a particular area. A lot of, like you said, I have definitely stumbled on certain researches that have talked about this alternative as well. Yeah, it could both be beneficial and then could be negatively impactful. Beneficial in such a way that, of course, biodiversity definitely increases, but for how long? And also, how much do we know about, okay, the fish species we are bringing to a new environment, for example, how well can they procreate together with a fish species that is already endemic to that area? How much effect will it have in ensuring that there is no drop in fish population of or the original endemic species? Because of course, I'm quite sure that some of us already have a knowledge about the fact that we could also, by bringing new fish species to a different location, we could also introduce so many unforeseen disease carriers in a particular different region. There are so many uncertainties that a lot of people don't really put so much emphasis into using this alternative in terms of, okay, since fish cannot migrate, why don't we like increase or introduce new fish species to probably boost fish population or boost biodiversity? A lot of people don't really like to, or a lot of, for example, a lot of scientists don't really usually like to profile this type of solution because there are so many things that could go wrong in terms of course, invasive species, for example. In fact, some species can actually really come and dominate that area rather than take over from the species that are already endemic to that area. They could become more superior and then take over that area. I mean, we've heard of how, for example, let me use tilapia, for example. Tilapia could be they are very, very prolific animals, and they could definitely survive in so many freshwater bodies. And look at how much they spawn in terms of their reproduction and everything. If you put tilapia together with certain fish species, for example, in a particular water body that is probably not its original home, with the spawning process and everything, with how fast it is and how much it can produce, they could, in the space of 2 years, they could already take over that water body if they can survive in that water body, of course. I mean, there are so many uncertainties that comes with introducing species to boost biodiversity in certain areas. So a lot of scientists always like to okay, go for the alternative of, okay, let's try to build structures that are fish friendly. Let's try to bring or use the, let's just try to ensure that the natural process continues. I think that's like the most effective approach currently, because mimicking that natural environment has been working for a while, and it has continued to work. And a lot of people are now building fish-friendly structures. And I think that's probably that's why a lot of scientists are not really giving out that alternative of bringing species to a new area, basically.
Oh, thank you for that. That was insightful. And if you check the chat also, maybe there's some discussion going on the chat. So they are insightful also. So I just want to add to what you just said about introducing new species into a particular water body. In Lake Victoria, for example, Lattice niloticus was introduced to the lake just to boost the biodiversity. But what they later discovered was that Lattice niloticus was dominant. So it almost made cyclid species to go to extinction. So sometimes when we think we want to increase the biodiversity, we are doing more harm than good. So we just have to be sure that we are I really don't think that's really a kind of a sustainable alternative, to be honest, because we are trying to disrupt the biodiversity of that particular place. So yeah, thank you for that. And we really, 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 really do appreciate that. So do we have any other question? Okay, Mr. Paul Ayomide, please be brief. Thank you.
All right, I don't have a question particularly. I just want to encourage every one of us. We have a good turnout for this engagement. I want to encourage everyone to also join the next seminar for next month, because many of these things that are being discussed here, they are made easily understandable, and these are global discourse, right? Like Sherif has said during his presentation, these are issues that the global society are looking for ideas to navigate. So for young researchers, students, change makers who have an idea or passion for promoting aquatic biodiversity, this could be one of it. Even if you are in this engineering space, right? So I just want to encourage everyone to join in next week. For those who join, I think Kemi, it's quite early in our place. Thanks so much. This is a great turnout. So just me encouraging everyone to make sure that we join next month as well for our next session. And thanks to the speaker for the amazing session. And thank you, Paul, for the excellent moderation.
I think Mr. Paul has made my work easy because it's closing for me already.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate everyone for coming. Thank you, even though sometimes we have to go hard on ourselves, but thank you for Tony for coming to the seminar. And then, as Mr. Paul has rightly said, we'll be having another one next month, and it will be as impactful as this, even maybe more impactful than this. And then just for someone that is thinking, oh, how do I reach out to Aquaworld? I really love what you guys are doing. So just see this. So you can go to our website, and we are on the Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on X, former Twitter, and we are very active on LinkedIn also. But if you really want to see more on how to contact us, you can just go to www.aquaworld.org.ng. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I really had a nice time. I learned a lot, and then I hope you did also. And with this, we have come to the close of the seminar for this month, and see you next month. Thank you once again, Mr. Sherifdeen Babalola, for coming.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks everyone for joining, and see you for the next month session.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.